Welcome to Adding Sugar to Lemonade podcast, and let's get into today's episode. Someone recently asked me about my favorite part in the entire writing process, and my short answer to that is the first draft. But the more I think about this question, the clearer it is to me that while I enjoy writing the first draft the most, I always think that it is hard when I'm in the thick of things. And I feel that the next phase is going to be easier. But it never is. We often romanticize a writer's life, but while it's joyful to write, it can also be hard. And we don't hear a lot about how hard it can get and what we need to do when we are finding it difficult to keep working on our books. No matter what you're doing and how much you love it, it's impossible to feel consistently happy about your work or your profession. Even in your dream job, you'll have hard days when you'll question yourself if you're even in the right profession. And it's going to happen to you as a writer as well. And because you might not have a lot of writers surrounding you, this might feel harder to understand, cope with, and why you cannot complete your book. I have been working on my current book for a few years now, and I thought I could release it this year, 2021. It's been hard to accept that my book is not ready for release, and I hit a point when I had completely lost momentum. And if this feeling resonates with you, I hope this episode will be like the painted leaf, from O. Henry's The Last Leaf. I never looked at writing as a tedious work, but with every draft, I feel it's getting more and more tedious. The broad outline of my story is perfect. It makes sense, but with every scene, there are 1,000 things that I need to fix and tweak and rewrite or rearrange, and it feels never ending. I took out the very first draft of this novel that I wrote in November of 2016, and oh boy, the story has changed so much. So I pulled out all the drafts and I read through all of them. And it was fascinating to see not only how much the story has evolved, there were characters added in the third draft that I don't have anymore, and so much of the story has changed over the multiple drafts, but also how much my writing and my storytelling style has improved. And even though the process is slow and tedious, it's been an important part of my growth as a writer. The point I'm trying to make is that we have to go into this knowing that it's going to be hard and embrace that fact that it will get tedious and even boring at times. I went to a boarding school. It was on a hill station, and every Saturday we'd go for walks. I hated it. No matter whether it was raining or not, we went for those walks. Of course, it was safe, otherwise we wouldn't have been allowed to go on those walks. But my 13-year-old self hated it. I hated wearing those heavy raincoats and rain boots that gave blisters, walk for what felt like hours in the drizzle and murky water, climb up the mountains or down the slopes. I hated every bit of it. But when we reached the destination, it made all that worth it, because what waited at the end of the walk every time was a beautiful view of rainbows and sunshines and clouds with silver linings. It was always magical. It felt more magical because of those blisters in my feet, I think. Just because something is hard and tedious or even unpleasant sometimes doesn't mean it's not meant for you or you're not meant for it. It's part of the process. It is supposed to be hard. It's the growing pains of being a writer. And in the world of instant gratification, it is harder to work on something that doesn't reward you in the same way as social media does. But throwing in the towel and giving up shouldn't be an option. Writing comes very easily to many people, but that's not the case for me. I'm aware that I'm good with words, but it's also hard for me. And we have to realize that both these can exist together. You can be good at something, but at the same time, it can be hard. There might be some aspects of writing and storytelling that come to you naturally, and for others, you have to work hard. but you don't become better at the craft with just the things that come naturally to you that you're good at. You become a better writer when you work on the hard things, the things that don't come naturally to you. That's where you're growing as a writer and as a person. I think we give too much credit to motivation, but motivation can only last you for a bit, and also it comes in waves. When the waves recede and before the next wave of motivation hits you, there has to be something that helps you to keep going. That is grit, where you keep your head down and keep working even though there's no tangible results, no outcome of your efforts. That grit is the knowledge that it's all going to come together. And the way to do that is to have your writing projects broken into tasks broken down into bite-sized pieces. You have to write 50, 60, 100,000 words for your book, and that can be overwhelming. But when you break that up into small tasks, write 20 words at a time, 20 minutes at a time. You know that by writing 20 words or for 20 minutes, your book is not going to be ready. But you know that it will get you closer to finishing that book. That knowledge that every 20 words you write, every 20 lines you edit will get you closer to a complete manuscript. Acting on that knowledge is grit. That's what perseverance looks like. And when you track all this, it helps you see the progress, but also know that it's not all about numbers. And you have to figure out what you want to track and how you're going to track it without it getting too overwhelming. What works for me is tracking my progress in different ways during the different phases of a writing project. Tracking word count makes sense during the drafting phase, but tracking the number of hours or the chapter or the pages makes better sense during rewrites, revisions, and editing phase. It's important to accept that writing a book is going to take more time, and even though we want to see the finished book, it's going to take time. And you have to be okay with that, especially if it's your first book. It's important to be aware that you have to spend a few long months with the story, with the characters, with your work. So enjoy the process. Be mindful of the different phases and how the story is growing and how that story is helping you become a better writer, because every book we write is part of our story. What anecdotes will you share about writing that book at your book signing or an interview if you don't spend enough time with your book? When I was writing Perfect Imperfections, I would write on my phone during my commute to and from my office, which would take about 3 hours. In the evenings, I would transfer whatever I wrote that day, I would transfer that to a Word document on my laptop. That's how I wrote the first draft. It was frustrating to type on my phone, but that's the only time I had to write. I dreamed of having a dedicated desk that was mine, that I could sit and write and work on my book. But I didn't have that at that time. And now it's part of my story that I get to share with you. You have to be okay with adversities because a good story always has. And when it's hard and you stick with it and you keep your head down and you keep going, you will eventually have that book. I hope you found some value in this episode. Like this video if you did. There are more to come, so subscribe. You will also find the transcript to this podcast on my website, which is linked in the show notes below. And I'll see you in the next one.